Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the July 8th Lebanon City Council meeting. Our first order of business will be the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we'll move on to the roll call members. Madam Clerk, call roll, please.
Mike Kincaid.
Present.
Keith Campbell.
Here.
Sandra Jasinowski.
Here.
Dick Robertson.
Here.
John Copeland.
Here.
Sierra Messenger.
Present.
Rob Hawkins.
Okay, the minutes did not come through, so we'll get those at our next meeting. So move on to old business. First item up will be consideration from the Lebanon Utilities. Actually, Ben, you want to do the annexation first? Or excuse me, the vacation? That might be faster. Let's do that. We'll just do consent from the council, take the agenda out of order.
Yes.
Consent? Okay. We'll do item C then, ordinance 2024-09, council to consider a vacation of unimproved right-of-way between 1929 and 2001 Elizaville Road. This is our ordinances on second reading. Ben?
Good evening, council. Just give a quick overview of the vacation ordinance that was introduced at your last meeting. So this is a 50-foot unimproved right-of-way for Tire Drive that's between 1929 and 2001 Elizaville Road. If they want to go ahead and pull up the overhead, we'll just quick highlight this again. Again, the right-of-way is collectively what's shown in yellow and blue here. And the vacation request would be for the portion of the right-of-way shown in yellow would be vacated to the property owner to the north, the Parks family. And what's outlined in blue would be vacated to the Cross family as the homeowner to the north there. Just a quick refresher. Obviously, the Cross family that's here to the east uses this right of way to access their home. So as we discussed last time, there would be an access easement that would be recorded. There would actually be three parties to the easement, which to include the homeowner to the south who has a barn at the back of their property. They want to be able to access that through that driveway as well. So my understanding is the structure of that document has been completed, and so that's all getting worked out. And then the only other item we had was recording a utility easement to accommodate the electric lines that run north and south through the middle there. Pending the approval of the ordinance tonight, what we'd ask is that all of the access easement, the utility easement, if we have evidence of the recording of those documents, once we have those, then we would release the vacation ordinance for recording as well. That's a quick overview. Be happy to answer any questions if there are any.
Any questions for Ben from council this time? Okay, I'll have Rob read the ordinance.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. Ordinance 2024-09 is ordinance, again, to vacate public ways, whereas it's the duty and responsibility of this council to maintain the public rights-of-ways for the benefit of the citizens and to vacate those no longer needed for the benefit of the public. A petition under docket 24-15 was filed with the City of Lebanon Plan Commission to vacate a portion of unimproved street right-of-way. Specifically, again, the 50-foot unimproved Tire Drive right-of-way between 1929 Elizaville Road and 2001 Elizaville Road. That's all reflected in Exhibits A, B, and C. The Plan Commission voted 6-0 to send a favorable recommendation to this council for its consideration. Therefore, be it resolved that pursuant to Indiana Code, the city has authority to vacate public rights-of-ways and now finds that the public right-of-ways identified in Exhibits A, B, and C are no longer needed for the benefit of the public. There's been a published public hearing pursuant to Indiana Code, and this council finds it's proper and necessary to vacate the public right-of-ways identified in Exhibits A, B, and C. The conveyance of the real estate described in Exhibit A shall be to Craig and Natalie Parks, and the conveyance of the real estate described in Exhibit B shall be to Stephen and Gerald Cross. This ordinance shall be in full force and effect in accordance with Indiana law.
Thank you, Rob. Any questions for council at this time for Rob? No, sir. Okay. Is there any public comment concerning ordinance 2024-09? Sure.
We will not be able to record it. Okay.
We have dozens of people watching at home. So
Yes. Craig Parks, 2001 Elizaville Road. We will not be able to record the easement until the property actually has been vacated. So we've got the document ready to sign or partially executed, but we'll have to record them simultaneously. We can't do one
Correct, yeah.
for the
So I think
other.
once we've
Just want
got,
to make sure of that.
yeah, I think once we have all the easement agreements clarified, then we'll officially vacate it from the city, correct? And file all that.
File it all together.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Any further questions, comments? Okay, seeing none. We'll entertain a motion then concerning ordinance 2024-09.
I'll make a motion, we approve ordinance 2024-09.
Motion approved from Dick. Second from Mike. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That is approved. Thank you, council. Okay, we'll turn to our previous items then. So this is a consideration from the Lebanon Utilities recommendation to withdraw from the electric utility from the jurisdiction of the IURC. We have Ed Baskell from Lebanon Utilities to speak on this.
Yes, good evening, Mayor, City Council. Jeff Jacobs on the agenda. He'll be here a little bit late. He had something come up. But what this first item is a continuation of the public hearing, because 2 weeks ago, I made a presentation to the City Council and the Mayor and everyone present. We talked about what was getting out of the IURC, and just a thumbnail briefing is that our default position was being in the IURC until a law changed in the 80s. And now we are one of 4 or 5 out of 72 utilities, municipal utilities that are still in the IURC. And we're looking to get out, and this is part of the public hearing as far as making public comment. So unless there's any questions from the City Council, just request you open it up for public comment.
Any questions for Ed from the council? We've had 2 weeks or so to review the proposal.
Yes, if you would, just for those that are watching, give a couple highlights of the benefit of leaving the IURC.
Yes, thank you for that question. One benefit of leaving the IURC is that it will be less expensive for us to change our rate structure and change our rates, because right now, and also less time consuming, because right now it costs, from memory, about $150,000 to do a rate study to change our rates. And there's also the issue of transformers, because transformers look like about a $1.5 million hit on next year's budget. And many other utilities that are out of the IURC, they can set up a fee structure so that growth pays for growth and the developer pays their fair share of the transformer costs. So it could ultimately lead to lower rates for our ratepayers, and that's what we're after.
Any questions for Ed? Okay. Yeah, I'm going to have, so I'll have Rob read the ordinance 2024-11, then I'll have a public hearing on it.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. Ordinance 2024-11 again concerns an ordinance withdrawing the City of Lebanon Utilities electric utility from the jurisdiction of the Indiana Utility Regulatory Commissions. Whereas Indiana Utility Regulatory Commission has jurisdiction over the electric utility rates, charges, and evidence of indebtedness. On March 20, 2024, the Lebanon Utility Board adopted Resolution 2024-03, recommending to this council to adopt this ordinance, removing the electric utility from the jurisdiction of the IURC. The Lebanon Utility Board and the utility staff operate the not-for-profit electric utility in a responsible and prudent manner, resulting in electric rates that are lower than many other Indiana for-profit electric companies. This council and the board have operated non-IURC regulated water and wastewater utilities using reasonable, prudent, and fair practices with equitable rate adjustments. Whereas this council recognizes, pursuant to Indiana Code, the majority of municipal utilities in the state of Indiana have been removed from the jurisdiction of the IURC as to rates, charges, evidence of indebtedness, and other matters. Whereas any future proposed rate adjustment by the electric utility required adherence to Indiana state law processes and procedures. This council believes, number one, that the city and the utility board are capable of appropriately establishing rates and charges, determining suitable levels of indebtedness, and otherwise operating the electric utility without incurring the expense and regulatory delay associated with the IURC's jurisdictions over such matters. Two, as a result of the city's growth and development, it would be beneficial to the city, the electric utility, and its ratepayers to be able to adopt its procedures, charges, and tariffs in a more efficient and effective manner. And three, the electric utility should be removed from the jurisdiction of the IURC. This council has conducted public hearings prior to the adoption of this ordinance. and written notice of the public hearings for the purposes in considering the removal of the electric utility from the jurisdiction of the IURC has at least 30 days before the final vote on this ordinance been mailed to all ratepayers of the electric utility in accordance with Indiana law. Therefore, be it resolved, this council finds and determines that the preambles set forth above are hereby made findings and determination by this council. Pursuant to Indiana law, the Lebanon Utilities is hereby withdrawn and removed from the jurisdiction of the IURC for approval of rates and charges and the issuance of stocks, bonds, notes, or other evidence of indebtedness, and for all other applicable matters permitted by the laws of the state of Indiana. If any portion of this ordinance is determined to be unconstitutional or in violation of state law, the remaining portions of this ordinance shall continue in full force and effects. Ordinance 2024-11 is hereby adopted and shall become effective 60 days after the adoption by this council and the execution by the mayor, consistent with Indiana law.
Ordinance 2024-11 has been read on second reading. At this time, I open the public hearing on this ordinance. If you need public comments, please come forward, state your name for the records, and keep comments to 3 minutes if possible. Seeing no sudden movements, I will close the public hearing on ordinance 2024-11. Any further discussion, comments from council?
No, sir.
Would entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve ordinance 2024-11.
Motion to approve. Is there a second? Second from Rob. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That is approved. Thank you, council. That concludes what I have for old business. Is there anything from council?
Nothing from me.
Okay. Ed, do you need me to stall a little bit for Jeff, or do you want to?
Yeah, let me get started. I was texting with Jeff and he said he was 10 minutes out, so
Okay.
he'll be here soon. But the next thing that Jeff has on the agenda is eminent domain for our Reese Park project.
Yep.
What I can say is that this project only takes a couple of weeks to complete, but we've been stalled out trying to get easements in the negotiations. Eminent domain is the absolute last resort. We really don't want to go to eminent domain, but we've gotten to that point with many meetings and many negotiations. Ryan Ottinger's here. He can maybe speak to a little more detail in the negotiations, but we really want to get into what the actual cost issues are on it. I just have faith in us and what it says in the.
We can
Yeah.
stand a recess if you want Jeff to be. If you said he's 10 minutes out, about 10 minutes out, you said?
Yes.
Yeah, so let's recess until the fall of the gavel. Should be about 10 minutes, okay? All right, we're going to stay in recess.
Thanks.
All right, our utilities attorney has arrived, so we will re-adjourn. Welcome back to the Monday, July 8th, Lebanon City Council meeting. We're on new business. This is Resolution 2024-15, eminent domain of Reese Park Lift Station, Lebanon Utilities. Jeff.
Mayor, thank you. Members of the City Council, apologies. One of those extenuating circumstances with a little bit of a traffic violation issue. So apologies. So
cannot spend
without
sight, so you know.
self-incriminating, so I apologize and beg your indulgence. As mentioned, my name is Jeff Jacob. I'm attorney with Hackman Hewlett. I'm the Lebanon Utilities attorney. I'm here tonight with Ryan Ottinger, the Water Wastewater Operations Manager, and Ed Baskell, the General Manager, as well as Neil Taylor, Lebanon Utility Board Member, Chairman. I'm here tonight to talk about acquisition of some easement, and I just want to say at the outset, this is not a request that we come to you very lightly with. We have, you may recall, some time ago, the Reese Park Lift Station was improved. And that improvement has been completed, and this is phase 2 of that process, where we are replacing or installing additional lines that will move through that lift station and will be a significant improvement to sanitary sewer service in and around that area. Specifically, one of the phase 2 elements is upgrading the sanitary sewer lines to the lift station from a 15-inch line to an 18-inch line. Now, the area that we're talking about is the Brendanwood subdivision, and we have a line that runs across 39 through the Dairy Queen, southern portion of the Dairy Queen lot, and then through the Brendanwood subdivision through backyards. Not perhaps the way I would have designed it or others, but it's the design that we have, and that's the only engineered path that we can reasonably take. Now, I want to reiterate that the area that we're talking about has an existing sewer line in place. We need more space to install and upgrade that line. So we're here tonight asking for the City Council's approval to proceed with filing of a condemnation action on 2 parcels. And unfortunately, the residential parcels that are wooded, they've got wooded residential lots. And we're very sensitive to that, and we have been at this, and just to take a step back, the Bettler, Fairman, and Seifert land acquisition team originally started attempting to acquire the needed permanent and temporary easement to complete this phase 2 of the project over a year ago. And since that time, we have acquired all but 2 necessary parcels to start the project. And when it became clear that the Butler, Fairman, and Seifert team was not going to be able to acquire all the necessary easement, we had a few sticking points, and I'm not being critical of anyone. I understand people have different hot buttons and opinions of valuation of property, which we know are greatly in flux in this area right now. And so I understand. But we have 2, once that became clear that we were not going to be able to come to a resolution through the Butler, Fairman, Seifert team, my office got involved as well as Ryan Ottinger and the contractor. And we've met with the property owners on site on a number of occasions, and we just simply have too many sticking points that are still open. And it is, the time has come that we need to be able to pivot and take action and file an action if needed. Now, one of the things that I want to be clear about is that on these 2 parcels, if you grant us or give us the authority to file condemnation actions on these 2 parcels, we're not running to the courthouse tomorrow and filing. And all of the offers that we have made by way of monetary value, which I don't want to get into those because it's still an open item, as well as the sort of the creative nuances that we can do within the bounds of the law to try to help induce a property owner and make them more comfortable with the acquisition of permanent and temporary easement. those aren't going off the table. So what my commitment to you is that we're still going to work with the property owners and try to come to a resolution. And we will work with their representative. They've retained Mike Andrioli, who's been involved since the very early stages of this. And we will continue to work with them and try to come to a resolution. However, this has gone on to the point where we need to move forward, and perhaps this will shake things loose and we'll be able to come to finalize terms. A couple of other, part of the reason that we're here, the utility has the authority to condemn property and acquire easement. But it has been the practice of this entity to ask us, the utility, to come before you and get the authority and proceed under the city council's blanket, if you will, for condemnation purposes. And that's supported by the utility board. The utility board is unanimously supportive of this request, and they very much are in favor of the elected officials making the decision to extend that authority. So in front of you this evening is a resolution where we've outlined 2 parcels where we need approximately 0.15 acres of permanent easement and about 0.25 acres of temporary easement on parcel number 1, and 0.18 acres of permanent easement and 0.09 acres of temporary easement on the second one.
Did you have a copy of the?
Yeah, I've got it right here. I don't believe I have it in color.
Want to use mine? Or, yeah.
Okay. Oh, thanks. All right. So I may have Ryan step up and address some of the particulars of this, but you can see where to the west, we've acquired all the easement needed in this area. We're able to cross 39, and then we come into this area. Now, part of the detail here is showing where we have existing easement, and then where we need additional easement, and then the yellow is temporary easement. Trust me when I tell you that we have done quite a bit of work to try to ratchet this needed property easement down to a bare minimum. You'll see a fair amount of temporary easement that's needed for construction laydown area. And here is just a little bit more detail. Southern parcels that are at issue. Any other questions that I can answer?
So Jeff, how many parcels total were needed for the project?
I believe there were 28.
So we've got 26 out of 28 total. Is that the issue?
Yeah, and I've been doing this for a while, and I've only been in front of you on a few occasions making this request. We don't take it lightly. I have learned very early in my practice that it is best to try to work through and listen to what concerns are. And we are still doing that and have done it. And I believe we can work through and perhaps get maybe one of these done. I'm not confident on the other one. But what we're running up against is, we've got some sanitary sewer issues that we want to see the investment made in the Reese Park lift station come to fruition. And we need this pipe in the ground to make that happen. So, we very much want to get on this project this year. We've continually updating the contractor and letting them know where we stand. And we think that can happen, but we're going to need to pull the trigger relatively soon to get that done.
Is the main sticking point, is it more of the expansion of the permanent easement, or is it a the more of an issue with the temporary easements, or it just depends on the different properties?
It depends on one of them. I'm not quite sure where we are. One of them, it's a little bit of both. These are taking down some mature trees. Unfortunately, the engineering of this is such that most of this was done through direct bore, except when you get to these two parcels, given the depth and the area that we needed to operate. Unfortunately, this could not be engineered to be done by direct bore, and it has to be done by open cut. And there are trees in there that are part of our compensation package, but we hate to ever take them down. And we understand, people value their property differently, and they're hot buttons, and we're trying to fortunately, the way this contract has been staged is a phase 2. The contractor that we've utilized is a very responsive, very respected, and they do a very nice job. Has been gracious enough to meet on site with the property owner, talk through what some of those were. A long way of answering your question. It's a little bit of both in its concern of trying to think through what all those potential problems would be. There's an impact to their property, no doubt. And we're going to try to be, the contractors talked about timing and trying to be very efficient on their site, et cetera.
Just to clarify too, so if we approve this resolution and go through a condemnation process, they're still compensated for that, for whatever property is needed for the project, correct?
Absolutely.
It's
That
not like
doesn't-
we're taking it for nothing,
No,
correct?
that does not change. That does not change. And, frankly, as a utility, as a municipally owned utility, any of those sort of additional things that we do to try to help these, hey, we'll some of those additional commitments we make by letter that are outside the easement, those aren't going away either. We'll still do those as a good neighbor as well. So
I just want to clarify, it's like whatever there's eminent domain, it's not that their property's taken for nothing and they are compensated for. It's just,
right, and that becomes the difficulty. We've got to operate in the bounds of Indiana law, and we can only pay so much. You can't just keep adding and adding to that bucket. We've got to base it on our appraisals and what they've come back with. And we use a reputable appraiser and feel good about the numbers. And that's part of the issue. Others are some site management issues and the like. So,
any other questions for Jeff or Sandra?
Can you show us exactly on that sheet which two parcels it is? From what I see here, it looks like the yellow temporary, maybe? The two
Sure.
on the south?
in here. And
Okay, hold on.
I'm happy to provide the names. I typically don't do that. I believe it's provided in there, but it's Knox Family Holdings and Dakota and Zoe Bryson.
Is the temporary or the permanent easement that the new portion of the easement that's going in, is it negatively affecting the property besides bringing down the trees, obviously, and taking more of their land away? I understand that, but is it taking out driveways? Is it taking out fences? Are there things included on that we don't know? That makes sense.
Yeah, good question. Mr. Ottinger can speak to that issue a little bit more directly. He's been out on site more than I have. I can tell you that there is a propane tank involved. And, for example, just to give you an idea, instead of moving that, the utility has said moving it twice. The utility has said, listen, let's pick a permanent location for this where you feel good about it. And we'll pay to move it once. And let's make it right. It may be a little bit more costly to do that, but it makes sense rather than disrupting their service and doing. There are things like that we'll continue to do regardless of which direction this goes. That particular parcel, I'm very hopeful, can come to a resolution. But we need the teeth to be able to step up, and if needed, we need to file relatively soon.
What were the concerns of the two parcels, and were they the same? Did both families have the same concerns, or were they different?
Well, pardon? Yeah, go ahead. And I want to be a little cautious about getting into too terribly deep into, just as a comment, into some of those negotiations. But yeah, please go ahead, Ryan.
Thank you. Yeah, so each property is kind of unique. One has a beauty salon. So obviously the impact of customers needs to be addressed. And if a driveway, we did let them know that if a driveway is blocked, we can add a temporary route around that to ensure customers can get to the barber shop. And then upon completion, it would be part of the compensation would be a full restoration of any part of that driveway that was impacted. It will be as good or better than it was before we entered the property. There's also been concerns about just the safety. When you hear the term open cut or open trench, what would that impact with kids in the neighborhood or whatever? So, and understandably so. So the contractor insured them as the trench is open and the line is laid, everything's put back. If there is any opening, a construction fence is not going to be installed. It would be more of a permanent fence, just even for overnight, with like a construction top over it, like they do on the roads when there's a hole in the road, a plate over it to ensure children, animals, nothing would get in there in an unsafe way, and everything's left safely. We've also moved a little bit of the laydown area that you saw the largest impact. Here, we've moved a little bit of that into the cul-de-sac there it was originally a little bit larger, so we try to scale that back to have as small of impact as possible. And just to kind of piggyback off what Jeff had said about the importance of this line, we do have in heavy rain events in Brendanwood a couple of known overflows for on the resident side of sewer overflows in their yard, which is obviously a horrible health hazard. But also what we have to consider is this line takes in the sewer from Chadwick, Eulin, and Auburn Meadows, and soon to be Angeli Gardens. So you've seen Auburn Meadows the last 2 or 3 years, the amount of homes in there. So that additional flow has been calculated for this line. So as those homes get in and we don't have this line in, we're continuing to add flow to an inadequate line every time we connect a new home.
This is 15 feet that they're losing on their property.
On the permanent side, yeah, the construction's a little, and like Jeff said, if we could bore it, we would, and that would be a less temporary impact. But due to the depth, we have to open cut this, just engineering and structurally. So unfortunately, the construction easement's going to be a little bit bigger than it would be on a bore, but the permanent easement would be no different if it was bored or an open cut. It will just be the 15 foot that we would need. And all that would impact would be, you just can't, build a structure over the top of it. They can still, use the yard and they'll never know it's there. So it would just be what you could and couldn't build. It is hugged right up against a fence, so which is good because there's not, going to be a lot of permanent structures there anyway.
Other questions?
I got one question. Let's pretend that you weren't going to expand the Philly easement. You could go in there and start working on it right away without doing anything, correct? I mean, you just let them know you're going to be working in that area.
You have easement today, correct?
You could dig up the ground, you could do anything you wanted to.
I'm going to refer to council on this.
Yeah, so I think your question is,
I
do we
mean-
have existing easement in the area? And the answer is yes.
Yeah.
It is a very, very old reference to a sanitary sewer utility area in the backs of a number of the Brendanwood yards. So yes, we would be able to access that. My guess is that when that was platted, it was installed at the time with the idea that it wouldn't necessarily need to be expanded in a few decades, and here we are. So we don't have the space to operate within that existing platted utility easement. in order to expand the line. And so we need that additional temporary and permanent. It's going to be a bigger line, and we're going to be operating in tighter constraints because it's been built out, frankly. Again, not an area that we love, but it's the hand that we've been dealt in terms of how things have developed over time. So we wish differently, but this is, we've been back and forth with the engineers about it, and this is the place it's got to be.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry. This project does also add a solution to, we have an exposed creek crossing in the small, the creek may be a little strong, the small stream behind Dairy Queen. It has kind of been eroded out to the point to where the sewer line is exposed. So in a heavy rain event, there is potential for, a catastrophe on that line. So that will be bored underneath the creek according to all the common state statutes. So it will clear that and open that up, which we've been working with the county on cleaning up and going underneath as much as we can. So this will also eliminate a known creek crossing, exposed creek crossing that we have.
Ryan will certainly sleep better once that crossing is done more correctly.
Are you boring across Lebanon Street?
Yes, so we're boring underneath, and that bore pit will come up in the kind of right around the Dairy Queen parking lot and the Knox property where that bore pit is, and then we'll bore a little bit more, and then we'll open cut from there on. So once we get past the creek, we're going to bore underneath the creek, and once we come up, that's when we'll open cut after that.
Know if the people affected by this had the opportunity that this was, or were they notified that we are going to be discussing this at this meeting? Are we going to be able to be hearing from them, or?
No, and it's been my practice to not do that. This will be something that is done, utility board considered it. It was not noticed at that time, and I typically don't do that because this is sort of a unique procedure. Because we go from utility board to, this could in theory be an executive session discussion and then approved in an open session where you really wouldn't have that you would have that opportunity, but aren't required to do that. It's been my practice to not get into that level of discussion and these kinds of meetings because it leads to perhaps more of a ongoing negotiation in a public forum, and I don't think that's an appropriate venue. We've worked closely with the property owner and Mr. Andrioli, and we will certainly let them know. And I think that when Ryan recently spoke with property owners, that he let them know that we were turning it over to the attorneys and that this was likely.
I will say, I think I remember us doing this once before with the electric lines kind of south of town. If you remember that 69 kV line project back in 2016 or 17, maybe. I know we adopted the resolution, but then we never actually had to go to actually file condemnation. So I think this is a good step for us to at least progress it to then hopefully have
Fingers
some
crossed that this is one that really starts to shake things loose and we can finalize and get people, to sit down. We can, hopefully this will shake things loose and we don't need to draft a complaint and head to the courthouse. But we do need to move things along, and we need that authority to try to get this project in this year.
Final questions for Jeff from council?
Nothing from me.
Okay. I'll have Rob read the resolution, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Council Resolution 2024-15 is a resolution of this council delegating limited eminent domain powers to the Lebanon Utility Service Board. Whereas this city of Lebanon has the powers of eminent domain vested by and through the laws of the state of Indiana. Lebanon Utility Service Board has determined it's necessary to expand the municipal sanitary sewer system through the installation of additional sanitary sewer gravity mains and related facilities connecting the new Reese Park lift station generally along the east side of Lebanon Street and along Sunnybrook Lane within the city of Lebanon. The Lebanon Utilities Service Board may need to exercise the power of eminent domain to acquire property interests, which include temporary and permanent easement rights necessary to install the above described expansion of the sanitary sewer system related to the general depiction of the route in the expansion that is attached in exhibits A1, A2, and A3. The detail of the properties and the amount of land needed, the owner name, and the interest needed are attached as exhibits B and C. Therefore, be it resolved, this council finds that the Lebanon Utilities Service Board is hereby delegated all powers of eminent domain vested in the city of Lebanon by the state of Indiana for the limited purpose of acquiring property interests necessary as detailed in the attached exhibits for the expansion of the sanitary sewer system as set forth above, subject to the reservation of this council of the city to withdraw any powers at any time by way of properly adopted resolution. And this resolution shall be in full force effect immediately upon its adoption. I would just add, Council Mayor, that this council has done as well in certain limited circumstances to move forward in a similar process when we're dealing with certain roads. It's rare that we have to come to this situation, as Mr. Jacob indicated, and we try not to do that, obviously. And so that this is just a similar process that's going through what the utility needs.
Now the resolution's been read. Any further comments, questions from council? Any public comment concerning resolution 2024-15? With that, would entertain a motion from council?
I'll make a motion, we approve resolution 2024-15.
Motion to approve. Is there a second? Second. Second from Mike. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, resolution is adopted 5-2. All right, that concludes what I have for new business. Anything else from council?
Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Jeff. Okay, we entertain a motion concerning the claims.
Motion to pay the claims?
Motion to pay the claims. Is there a second?
Second the motion.
Second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Those opposed? Claims are approved. Any announcements or discussion from council?
No, sir.
Okay. Any general public comment? Okay, with that, would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make the motion to adjourn.
Okay.
Motion from Dick, second. Second from Sandra. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, our next city council meeting will be July 22nd at 7:15 PM. We are adjourned.